Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
No matter who you voted for in 2016, it was clear which presidential candidate represented the greater risk for the average voter. Whether you liked Hillary Clinton or not, she was undeniably the safer choice based on her experience in the White House and Senate and as Secretary of State. You knew almost exactly what you'd be getting with the first female president in American history. Donald Trump? Not so much. Okay, that's an understatement. A big one. Sure, he had all manner of huge, uniquely ambitious plans to overturn the political establishment and permanent bureaucracy that's been increasingly reviled by the American people. He delivered an unbroken string of explosively controversial statements, any one of which would have ended the career of a typical politician. He'd never even run for office before and was trying to become the leader of the free world, for heaven's sake. We had no idea if he could really pull off his swamp-draining agenda or how hard he'd really try. There was much talk of the Trump candidacy being little more than a publicity stunt, that he was seeking a job he would never get, and even if he somehow did, he'd lose interest in it after a while. Fast forward to 2020, and who represents the bigger risk this time around? The great irony is that the man who has impaled the entrenched, encrusted establishment may well be viewed as the safer choice, while his opponent, who represents a return to D.C.-style normalcy, may for good reason be viewed as the greater risk. Since Trump turned things on their head starting 4 years ago, we all know what we can expect from him in a second term. A continuing agenda of job growth, economic expansion, deregulation, the border wall, constitutionally based judges, and yes, law and order. In stark contrast, Joe Biden made clear in the words of his acceptance speech at the DNC convention and as demonstrated throughout his lengthy political career, that he's actually at odds with his own party right now. He called for a return to decency as Democrat mayors across the nation allow spectacularly indecent behavior to continue almost unabated. He called for unity when his progressive base wants none of it. The dialogue is over. He declared that he would be an American president for all the people, while his party's increasingly overrun by those who judge solely on the basis of skin color and seek to dismantle the entire structure of what they call a systemically racist nation. Biden spoke of light and love as his party unleashed a torrent of darkness and hate on the person of Trump. All this as Biden and his party sit silent while gangs of savages burn down cities with little resistance from ruling Democrats, and they're now expanding their reign of terror from riot-torn cities to the peaceful suburbs. Given the dualism of today's Democratic Party, a historically moderate candidate fronting a party increasingly enthralled to the hard left, do we really have any idea what the former vice president would do if he takes a seat in the Oval Office? What could Biden, a lifelong legislator, do to try to combat COVID-19 other than a national mask mandate that Trump, the CEO president, hasn't done or tried already? Biden claims he would be tough on China, but has been an apologist for the Chinese throughout most of his 47-year career. He obviously plans to raise taxes, but how much once he feels the heat from his left? And yes, given his limited capacity, as demonstrated by a white calendar week while Trump and the GOP present a soaring pro-American convention, what are the chances Biden could even make it through a full 4 years? Will people really be voting for Biden for president or Kamala Harris? Biden promises a return to normalcy when normal on the left has become the insurrection in our streets we've been forced to witness despite an elite media blackout for these many weeks or months. To what version of normal would we be returning? The days of Obama? Not likely, as the Democrats have obviously moved on from the first black president, finding him insufficiently radical for the times. And Obama, in turn, has seemed to show little interest in assuming an active role in the party. One of the things we'll certainly find out is whether Donald Trump was elected president only because Hillary Clinton was such a poor candidate, as many Democrats privately believe. And one look at their radical 2020 agenda provides not a hint of belief in Democrat ranks that they were rejected on substance 4 years ago. Biden is essentially calling for America to go back to the future, to return to the halcyon days when he and Obama ruled the land. But he's trying to sell a return to civility while civil unrest, tolerated if not embraced by his own party, courses through the land like a pandemic of its own. The sweep of history demonstrates that Americans are not terribly risk-averse when it comes to untested candidates seeking the highest office in the land. Skeptics declared that John F. Kennedy couldn't win because he was Catholic, Obama because he was black, Clinton because he was tarred as a womanizer and draft dodger, Reagan because he was depicted as a dangerous warmonger. They were all elected and re-elected, if you count LBJ's election in 1964 as a replacement for the martyred John F. Kennedy. The big difference this year is that the candidate who's been in plain sight for almost half a century in Washington and served as a senator and vice president might well represent a far greater risk in this most improbable year than the candidate who just 4 years ago was the very definition of the word risky.